Hi everyone, welcome to 360 Art Drops channel with the Z. We help small businesses grow through our podcast. Today we have Vikaas Dixit. He is the owner of DIXIT.PROPERTIES and is located in Hayward. So Vikaas, how can you introduce yourself and your background in realty?
My name is Vikaas DIXIT, and I'm born and raised here in the San Francisco Bay Area. For the international people, that's in obviously the United States of America, if you're familiar with San Francisco. And I live in Hayward, which is about 30 minutes east of San Francisco. So there's a lot of cities obviously surrounding the Bay Area, but I'm sure you can um, remember too from growing up here at some point. As far as me getting into the industry, I actually didn't get into the industry at first. My background is actually in engineering. So growing up, my goal was to be an astronaut as a kid, and I went to school at San Jose State. Was doing aerospace engineering over there, so I could become a astronaut. But eventually, switched majors at some point. Main reason why is because the school at in my senior year of college, they for some reason had no more money in the budget apparently, so they cut a lot of my classes in my senior year. So I dropped out for a little because I wasn't making any money at the time, so I needed to get a job.
Uh-huh.
So I got a job at Starbucks as a barista. Worked with a few of my friends, and just did that for about a couple years, and then at some point I realized I need to go and finish my degree.
Right.
And at that point, I realized I wasn't really necessarily into aerospace as much as I was before, and um, you know I, I I looked at Cal State Hayward, which is now called Cal State East Bay,
Oh,
and they had an industrial engineering program, and the school was in a quarter system, which meant I could get a lot more classes done in a short amount of time versus San Jose State, which was semester. So I switched my major to industrial engineering, switched all my credits over, and then finished whatever the other classes were, and finished that degree up within a year and got my degree in industrial engineering,
oh
Bachelor of
wow.
Sciences, and um, then the hard part was trying to get a job out of college.
Right.
So a lot of companies here, especially in the States, they're always wanting people who have at least a few years of experience under their belt. Obviously, I didn't have that. And so, obviously applying to a lot of companies and job positions, it was hard because I'd get to that final interview, but there
Correct.
was always somebody else who had, a few more years
More
of experience under
experience.
the belt
Yeah, it's that
than
catch
me.
22.
So
I
yeah,
have the same problem.
yeah. And so at some point, it just got frustrating to the point where I was like, okay, well, I need to find something to do that's going to help me as far as, not just live a normal life, but, for the future.
Uh-huh.
Sorry for the background noise. My dog is making some sounds because he's wanting to go outside real quick. So just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, when I was going through as far as what I wanted to do, my ultimate last resort was, if I couldn't find a job, was going to join the Air Force
Uh-huh.
as an officer, since I already had my degree,
Okay.
right? And so, but before I did that, then I started researching real estate. Um, you know, did about a year's worth of research before I actually got into the industry. There was a few friends, family members from Southern California that were in it. Saw that they were doing pretty well and having a good time as far as just life, living
Uh-huh.
it. Something I, you know, took upon myself to research and then look up. And then, yeah, once I made a decision, okay, I think this is something I can do. Took all the classes that I needed to, finished them
Uh-huh.
up in about 3, 4 months, got all the
Mhm.
quizzes done, sent them in, then took my state exam test for California, passed that, and then got my license.
Nice.
So, as far as, hold on, dog's back.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but as far as me getting when I first got my license, it took me about, I would say, 3 4 months before I got my first deal. It was
Okay.
definitely obviously a new industry that I got into. Was never really into sales. I mean, the only sales experience I could say I had was when I was working at Starbucks, just
Uh-huh.
being, customer oriented at that point, but not really selling something to
You're
someone
well
to.
spoken, so that
Yeah, I
probably
appreciate that. Thank you. So I mean, it's definitely a learning curve. Um, I think what helped me a lot, obviously having that engineering background.
Uh-huh.
What I like to do with all my clients, especially when I look at properties, is I like to do a lot of pro and con kind of charts. Having my clients understand choices and variabilities in a certain sense. That way they can make a more balanced, educated decision.
What are
But
the
yeah, as
key
far as
factors that they look at? What are the key factors you look at with them?
yeah, so obviously, when I talk to clients, first, obviously, it's me more about trying to get to know them on a personal level, right?
Uh-huh.
Start building that relationship, building that trust.
Uh-huh.
Um, because obviously, sometimes when you meet new people, you can't just, break down the barriers that they have, right?
Right.
So you have to start getting to know them on a more deeper level. But as far as when get to know them and figure out what they're looking for, it's more of, okay, what are you looking for, like a single family home, are you looking for a condo, townhome? Where are you in the process as far as financially? How much do you think you can put down? Obviously the main important thing for most people that, let's say, don't have an all cash offer is, have they gotten pre-approved? Because that's the most important step to understanding where you are financially in order to buy a property.
Do they go through that
Because
pre-approval process with you, or do they just have to do that before they meet you?
well, typically there's people who have already gotten pre-approved that I met, and then we just go once I already know that they're pre-approved, I know what number they're at, and then I can just send them properties more itemized and specific to what they're looking for.
Okay.
But if there's buyers who aren't pre-approved, I have lenders that I use all the time that I recommend to them, that I want them to get set up first, so that way we know where they stand as far
Okay.
as what their purchase price is, and what other financial factors are involved. Excuse me. And then from that point, then it's a pretty easy, seamless process from that point, because once I know what number they at, then
Uh-huh.
I can just give them the properties that fit their budget, right? Because let's say if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I like this house that I saw is priced at $1 million," right?
Right.
And let's say they hadn't gotten pre-approved, but then now I had them go through that process. They got pre-approved, but it turns out they can only afford $800,000. So
Okay.
they kind of wasted all that time looking at $1 million house when now they can only get qualified for up to 800,000. So
Right.
that's why we always recommend anybody that's looking to purchase a property that's not doing an all cash offer and is going to do a financing, to get pre-approved first, because that's going to tell you where you sit financially and what you can afford. And then that's also going to help us, because then we can make it easier for you to simply know, okay, this is the number, these are the homes within that number that fit what you're looking for, right? And
Right.
so it just makes it a lot easier, not only on us, but easier for the client as well. So it's not like they have to spend so much time going through a certain process in order to start looking for a house.
When they're looking for a house, how important is it for you to give them a smart location advice?
It's very important. I
Location
mean,
advice.
every client is, unique in their own way. Some, let's say, for instance, if they have to be close to work,
Um,
I know especially before COVID happened, a lot of people had to go to the office, right? So
right.
a lot of people would try to find properties that were as close to their offices as possible, so that way the commute time for them wasn't as crazy, right?
Right.
Or being next to maybe a transportation hub like BART.
Right.
Um, right? So that was definitely a key factor for a lot of people. And then some people aren't really have that as a factor as much. I know, especially now after COVID, because of how it's changed the workforce in a way where a lot of people now work more remotely versus being in the office. A
Right,
lot of people now have that ability where they can say, hey, we can find a house in the suburbs that's like 40 minutes away from the actual office
right,
and do our work from there, versus actually just trying to find something closer to work. So I would say it's definitely location is very important because every person's looking for a specific thing as far as what they like, right? So, you can say, for example, parents, right?
right,
They have young kids, right? Schools are obviously going to be very important for them. So trying to find a house that's in a location with a great school district is going to be important, right?
right.
Again, going back to the transportation area, some people who are, let's say, maybe younger that want to be more in that urban environment, maybe looking for something closer to a downtown, right? So location is definitely very important for people.
What is the unique challenges that you face with every client? Like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have had to face with them?
I would say definitely sometimes it's through the escrow period. Sometimes certain things can come up where, let's say, especially for a client that I represent as a buyer, right?
Um,
And they're having to, let's say, do inspections, right? And then something comes up in the inspections that turns out that's a little bit more major than what was shown previously from what the seller had stated, that,
um,
I've obviously told my client to watch out for now. And if we've come back to the seller and said, hey, this came out in the report, is this something that you are open to fixing and all that. Sometimes it can get a little heated in a way because sometimes sellers are not always open to doing things like that.
okay,
Right. So sometimes that's part of our job too, is to negotiate, obviously, to the best interests of our client to the other party. And sometimes that other party may not be as open to things. So
right.
sometimes there can be a little bit of a heated exchange in certain regards when it comes to that.
Uh,
Uh, Other aspects could be the appraisal, right? So sometimes that really hinders a transaction from going through because, for instance, if let's say we came with an offer price of $1 million, but then the appraisal came out that the home is actually worth only 900 based off the appraisal, now we're short $100,000, right? So, having to negotiate that with the other party can sometimes also be a detrimental factor when it comes to the transaction. But, as long as both parties can somehow come to an agreement, then it's usually okay. But there are times when these things, for instance, can get a little out of hand, and the other party's like, well, no, if you're not going to do this, then this is not going to happen. We're not going to sell the house, and then it kind of you know gets into a little heated again battle where the other client's like, well, no, we like the house, we want this, and I don't understand why the seller doesn't understand that. Well, we're overpaying. You should understand that based off this appraisal we got, that's the value of the house. So, sometimes those can be hard things to deal
right.
with when it comes to certain transactions. Yeah.
So you have to stay super calm.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things we have to do as far as staying super calm. The main thing for me when it comes to clients, I always want my clients to have a seamless, easy transaction in the sense that they're not necessarily having to have that anxiety and stress when it
Right,
comes to selling their home or even buying a home. I want to make it as easy for them as possible and have them understand everything that's going on, that goes on through the transaction process. And that's why I always lay out the details up front first for all my clients. So that way
right,
there's no expectations that they have. Because once you have expectations, then, and if something doesn't
get
exactly
really
match that
upset.
expectation, then yeah, they're going to feel let down. They're going to feel angry, right? So I always let them know exactly what can happen with each, you know,
Situation.
pathway or situation, exactly, right, in a transaction that could lead to these certain avenues. So as long as they understand that, then usually they have a better reaction as far as which way they want to go and pivot, and
Okay.
then it's not as hard for them to um, make that
Embrace
decision.
the embrace the results.
Yeah, exactly.
What technologies and what tools do you have to embrace in order to move forward in the real estate business?
Yeah, so obviously tech is becoming very prominent now in the real estate business. Obviously, throughout the years now, a lot of tech companies have made real estate transactions more seamless for people.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, the one of the biggest debates is, are real estate agents even needed anymore when it comes to buying and selling a house?
Because of
Uh,
AI or
well, not only AI, but the fact that, people can simply just go on a website now and say, hey, I want to buy this house. Let me buy it, and you just sign some paperwork and voila, right? But it's not
you
as
know, does
simple as
that
that.
show
I mean,
all
it
like
should.
does
Sorry,
that
what was that?
do they show all like the nitty-gritties, like the things that aren't fixed and like, things that you need a real estate agent for?
Yeah, so certain sites do, not all of them do, so obviously that's where the concern lies with us, is that, we always recommend somebody still have an agent, because again, there's still a human factor element that I think people still need when it comes to real estate transactions. And then the fact is, do people themselves understand the disclosures that are required when purchasing a home or even selling a home, right? Because again, those papers, if they're simply just using a site to buy a place and they get those papers and they don't understand what those papers are, they're at risk of, buying a place and then turns out it's not a place that they actually wanted because of something that's happened in the house, right? So,
Right.
having us there to guide people is always going to pay more
Oh,
dividends
yeah.
to people than they realize. So I think tech has definitely made it harder in certain regards, but I do think tech has helped us in a way too, just because, again, we can get so much more data when it comes to knowing, okay, this property sold for this price, this property sold for this price. This is where I think we need to be at value wise in order to maximize your net profit, as far as selling your home. So certain technologies like there's new CRM softwares, right, that help us keep our clients all together in one, and we can reach out and,
Right,
essentially
right.
what we call it touching them, right? Because we're sending out emails, we're sending out text messages, we're sending out other avenues in order to keep them in the loop and keep them in constant contact, so that way we don't lose that relationship, right? Then obviously there's tech that helps us with our marketing, right? So, it's another big tool. There's tech when it comes to obviously the MLS, the multiple
You
listing
use like
service.
MailChimp or something?
Yeah, there's different tech companies, right? So MailChimp is obviously one. There's obviously other CRMs like Constant Contact. There's Follow Up Boss, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's
So you have to use those on a daily basis.
Yeah, I would say yes. You definitely want to use that because, I mean, again, that keeps you updated as far as what's happening. The other ones, like obviously the MLS, right? Constantly looking at homes all day,
Uh-huh.
see if there's anything new that's
What's
popping up.
MLS?
So it's called the multiple listing service. That's what the
Oh,
MLS stands for. So that's how we as realtors are able to look at properties, see all the data about a certain home, and that's how we're able to send these homes to our clients so they can see what we're looking at.
and the
But
clients also use the MLS or is it only for realtors?
no, it's only for licensed real estate agents.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So the closest thing that people would get is probably on the public sites like Zillow or Redfin, right?
Right, right.
So you can get that data there pretty much, but we have more of the data in the sense that we can pull up the history of the house of when it's sold, what's the, again, property characteristics, confidential information regarding the property. So we have access to that the normal public, because they're not licensed, has access to.
Okay. What are the common misconceptions that the clients have besides using these technologies and going through transactions on their own, which is I can see why, you know, realtors are really important because they make they make your life easier by exposing some of the things that you wouldn't be exposed to with all the other information necessarily. You would have to go through a realtor. So what are the
Mhm.
common misconceptions that people have about the realtor business?
Well, I'd say one of the things that's definitely made a big misconception about realtors is reality TV. So there's a lot of, realty shows now, like Selling Sunset, Million Dollar Listing LA,
Yeah, yeah,
other spin-offs of these shows. And the thing I think people don't realize is that those agents that they see that are selling these ultra luxury homes, they've been in the business for a long time. So there's a reason why they're at that level and they're selling these higher priced homes.
right,
Um, and a lot of the stuff they see they don't see what goes on in the background. So, there's more negotiating as far as what, somebody going to meet up for a coffee and say, hey, we got a deal. It's not like that,
not that fast, yeah,
it's not that fast. So, and people can't, I think another big misconception is people think that when they get into the industry, they're gonna get a deal right away and they're gonna be able to make a lot of money. It's definitely not like that.
right,
If you get into this business, you got to understand this is a real business that you have to start from the ground up. You're not just going to simply get a deal and, you think that, oh, I just made 40,000 on a house, that's all it takes. It's a lot more than that. It's about relationship building. It's about learning how to manage a business. It's about learning how to do finances, taxes, right? It's all about budgeting, marketing, right? So there's a lot more that goes on to, you know, us as realtors than people see from the outside.
right,
I think also another misconception is that people think we make a lot of money. Sure, we can make a lot of money, but again, it's a lot of that money we make, more than half of that we cannot touch because we're a 1099 independent contractor. So all the
right.
money
So you
we
have to
get
pay
is,
taxes,
yeah, we have to pay taxes. So a lot of the money we make, more, I'd say half of that goes back to the government that we have to, you know, make
right?
sure we cover for the year. So I think that's when, obviously recently a lot of people are always asking for these credits back now, when it comes to especially realtor commissions, they feel realtor commissions are too high. One of the main reasons there's a lot of, I would say, arguments about it is because realtors, are trying to let people understand that, well, there's a lot more that goes on into what we get paid.
That
Part of
is something
our
you
commission.
disclose in the beginning, or do you wait till?
I typically wait. I mean, if it's really a big issue for some people, then I go through that process of explaining it to them. But if it's not, then I don't really bring it up. Typically it's not usually an issue for a lot of people.
Okay,
There's only a select few number of people who are like, oh, hey, I was hearing that this person was going to give me 2% of their commission to, help get this house versus, this other person. So, I mean, sometimes you got to be aware of that. At the end of the day, I don't mind helping people when it
right,
comes to that, but at the same time, I have to make a living too, and I got to be able to support myself as well. So I think a lot of people don't really understand that part of it too. So we have realtor fees we got to pay for each year. We got to pay MLS dues. We got to pay our association dues. We have to pay taxes. We got to pay office fees, let's say printing fees, right? So especially if you're at an office, right? So some of these expenses are not paid for. We got to pay for mileage on our cars, right?
right.
All these things that add up. So, you know, if people understood that more, I think they wouldn't have as much, you know, uh, negative aura around it. But it's just one of those things that I think has now become so apparent to a lot of people that they're really stickling
People
about
shouldn't
it.
hesitate because they should know the background. And it's
Yeah.
really important that you explain that in this podcast because I myself didn't know those things.
Yeah, so I don't know how it is in other countries, obviously. I just know, especially here in California, that's just how it is right now. But again, I get it. It's hard times for a lot of people right now, especially with the world and what's going on. I know, especially here in the USA, inflation has gotten out of control a lot. So, we have a lot of higher price goods going on right now, and the living wages that people are making aren't necessarily relatable to the inflation that's gone on in the country. So, the pay gap is pretty substantial. So, I mean, obviously there's certain things when it comes to that people will obviously take into account. But again, it's just one of those things that I let people know if it's a big deal about it. If not, then I just don't even bring it up, and I just focus more on what I'm trying to achieve for them
Right.
versus
That
what
makes
I'm getting.
sense, because in the beginning you're not sure if they're gonna stay with you long enough to close out something. So it's like, why should I bring up something that you're not gonna really need until they need it, that information.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how I approach honestly every client. I know there's forms that people have a buyer sign called a buyer broker agreement, simply locking them in as a client
Uh-huh.
to protect them in case they decide to leave and go with someone else. I don't work that way. At the end of the day, my thing is, if you want to work with me, awesome. I'm here to do everything I fully can to represent you and what you're looking for. If you don't want to work with me, that's fine as well. There's obviously other people out there that you can work with as well.
Right.
But my goal is to obviously build the trust first and build that relationship so you know how I work and how I can represent you and make sure I get exactly what you're looking for. Right. And so I don't like to just lock people into something that they don't feel comfortable doing.
Right.
And that's typically how I like to run my business too.
Yeah, and that builds trust with all your future clients too. Oh,
Yeah.
like, okay, most of our viewers are in the US, because
Mhm.
most of the people that I know, to
Mhm.
interview, they are either in the US or UK or
Mhm.
Spain.
Mhm.
So a lot of people are in California, that
Mhm.
I interview. But I just wanted to ask you, like, what's like common 3 bedroom a house? How much would it run in the Bay Area right now?
So I would say typical 3 bedroom would probably rent out for about 36 to about $3,900. Um, and then depending on location too, I would say in cities where the school districts are really good, then you're probably going to be looking at somewhere between the $400 to $4,500 range.
No, I'm talking
Um,
about not for renting, for buying.
oh. So as far as buying, yeah, the price it can vary again because of location, but typically from what I've seen for a 3 bedroom, it's usually about 850 to about 950.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Um, can you provide some tips for new home buyers?
Yeah, I mean, as far as new home buyers, I would say one thing to remember is that yes, people always talk about the 20% down payment. That's not a necessity. It's just a goal to have, I would say. 20% down just means that simply when you get a loan and you're putting 20% down, you are not going to have to pay any mortgage insurance on top of your loan. So anything below that 20% threshold, then you'll have mortgage insurance added on top. But you can buy a home as low as 3% down, 5%, 10%, 3.5%, which is FHA. So don't feel that you have to have 20%
What is
to purchase.
FHA?
Say again, sorry.
What is FHA?
FHA is the Federal Housing Administration. So it's their um, loan program that they've provided to a lot of people in order to get into home ownership. So basically, they have lower income people as well as people who don't necessarily have the greatest credit. So the credit scores that are allowable are a lot lower than what a typical conventional loan would
Okay.
be approved for.
What advice would you give to like somebody who wants to be a real estate agent in the Bay Area like you?
I would say definitely, okay, have patience, have motivation, because you need to have motivation in this industry every day.
Uh,
Um, have at least a year's worth of salary saved up, because it's not guaranteed you're just going to get a deal right away. Sometimes there's
okay.
people I've known who got their license and it took them over a year before they got their first deal.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, I would say have at least a year's worth of salary saved up, so that way it protects you just in case. Have People need to understand they have to get over their fear of rejection, because you're going to get a lot of no's in this business. And
Okay.
the faster you can get over that, the better off you're going to be.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of people I know who get scared because they hear multiple no's and they think it's a personal attack against them. It's not a personal attack. It's just,
Then
person's not interested in working with you, right? So simply, if somebody's not interested in working with you, just move on to the next person and see if they are, right? So
right.
it's a numbers game at the end of the day. So, if it took me 5 people to get one yes, then I'm gonna go and try again. If it takes me less, awesome. If it takes me more, still pretty good. I mean, at the end of the day, as long as I just get one yes, however many people I talk to, that will, help me.
Right. And also, just to wrap things up, like what are your biggest success stories that you've had to this point?
Let's see, biggest success story. I think for me was finally breaking into that ultra luxury market where I was able to get my first really big high net worth client.
Like how
And
much was the house?
so we purchased the house for $6.4 million.
Oh wow.
And yeah, it was actually a pretty good deal at the time, considering how the market was.
Uh-huh.
So I was able to help my client purchase this property off market through some marketing and all that. Was able to get in touch with the previous agent whose client the home belonged to, and was able to strike a deal um, with that seller. And my client's happy because now he gets to build his dream home that he's been looking for. So, but yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, that was probably one of my biggest success stories, is just being able to tap into that market. And, now I've been able to help multiple high net worth individuals. So I'm definitely thankful for that and grateful. Obviously, other successful things I would say that I've been able to do is, before I opened up my own company, I was with Keller Williams Realty, which is another high um, well-known brand here in the United States. It's a really good brand that teaches agents to train them how to become a successful realtor.
Okay.
That's what they were built on, is their training program, but they've become one of the bigger, well-known brands as well in the industry. So I'm thankful for them for allowing me to learn all that. And I was able to have multiple mentees while I was there. So it took me about a year into the business, and then I was able to become a mentor at Keller Williams and start
Oh wow.
teaching newer agents
Nice.
to learn the business. So I think that helped improve me as an agent as well, because it kept me on my toes and made sure I you know help people to be their most successful um, as well in the industry.
Right.
I mean, there's other successful stories, but yeah, I would say probably the one
How
that
much
the high
did
net
you have
worth.
to give back to the government in that case? Was it? Oh,
Yeah, I definitely had to give back a lot.
okay.
Obviously, the higher up, the more money you make in this country, right, the more you have to pay back, right? So,
Right.
which is not a bad thing if, again, obviously that means you're doing well, right? If you're
Yeah.
making a lot of money, you got to pay a lot of money, right?
Right.
So, um, I mean, as far as number wise, I would say it was
A lot.
above the 60K range as far as what I had to give
Oh
back to the
my
government.
goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. So, what are your future plans and like any other things that you want to impart to the audience? Just who you are or
Mhm.
um, what advice or just anything else that you'd want to impart to everyone about, your future or just
Mhm.
something your positive impacts on other people.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for a lot of people, just don't doubt yourself because I think there's a lot of people who do doubt themselves when they get into the industry. I think there's always that fresh like motivation at the start that can quickly go away. But I think people just need to keep at it, you
Uh-huh.
know, which is why I say have some patience. Just because something doesn't happen right away, doesn't mean you're doing bad. It just, again, it's just certain people or certain, have certain things as far as ways they like to do things. But, just got to keep trucking at it. You got to keep going at it. Got to keep just having that motivation to keep going and say, okay, I can do this. I know I can get one. So I would, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, I would just say stick to those things. If you can do that, you'll be definitely successful in the business. Making sure your connections to other agents are good too.
Oh,
You
okay.
definitely want to have those connections because you're going to be able to strike deals with those agents that may have properties that fit your clients' needs too before homes come even on the market, right? So having these connections with people in the industry are definitely going to be very, very helpful too.
Okay. Well, it was a pleasure having you on. And if anytime that you want to come back on 360 Art Drops, you're most welcome to. We
No,
have
thank you.
most people who are in the US. I'm sure they are very happy to hear from you and um, you know, they'll know to contact you. Can you just lastly give me your social media links on this interview?
Yeah. As far as my social media links here, let me pull them up. I'm not the best as far as the names that come at it, but as far as my Instagram, my business page is so my name is DIXIT.PROPERTIES. So that's my IG username for my business page. And then yeah, if you
So
just type in Dixit,
DIXIT.properties.
yeah. And if you just type in Dixit Properties, it should pop up as far as my info, as far as LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, Yelp, right? So I have it all set up so that way people know and they can see me when they see that.
Perfect. So yeah, I'd be happy to have you on again, and it was such a pleasure hearing from a person who's in the realty business. What are the ins and outs of the business, and the details of how things work. I
Yeah,
really
no, thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having me. I really appreciate it, and it was a fun time. Definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Vikas.
Thank you.